Hey loves, and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we are going to learn how to make this gather two skirt. Though I made this a gown, but you can make it a skirt if you want to. So I used 6 yards of net for this, but if you want to achieve a fuller look, you will have to buy at least 8 yards of net. So we are going to do the cutting and the sewing. So if you're making a skirt, 1 yard of ankara will be okay for you. So first of all, I will cut out the ankara part of this skirt, then I will cut the tulle. So for the skirt, it will be very short. It will be above the knee length. So if you're making a skirt, you will have to take out like 2 inches for your band. But if you are making a gown, that means you will subtract your half length. First of all, if your half length is 16, you will subtract 16. If it is 17, you will take out 17. So my half length is 16 and I took out 16 before taking my hip length and the full length of this gown. So the hip length is 27 and I want the ankara part to be very short, so it will be 32 inches plus seam allowance. That will be 34 inches. I added 2 inches for the allowance because I will fold it. I will not use a lining for this skirt. So after that, you will take your hip measurement plus your seam allowance. You can use 2 inches seam allowance if you want to, but that will be if you are adding a lining to the skirt. So after that, you take your waist measurement, and at the full length you will measure your hip. At the full length, you divide your hip by 4 and you mark what you got without adding any allowance. So after doing this, I will cut out the back and I will add a zipper allowance to the back part. I want to add a zipper to this, so you can add 1 inch for your zipper allowance or 2 inches, but 2 inches is okay for you to be on the safer side. So after doing this, if you are sewing with a lining, you will have to cut out your lining, but I am not sewing this with a lining. So after cutting out the ankara part, you will have to cut out your net. So first of all, the net part of this skirt will be bigger than the ankara part of it. Let's say if you measured your normal hip, if you are cutting out for the net, you should add at least 2 inches extra to your hip measurement so that the net will be free. But if you want to make the net fitted, you can also make it that way. So first of all, I will fold my net and I will take out my half length measurement. I will take out my half length measurement before taking my hip line and where I want the gathers to start from. So I took out my half length and I measured my hip line, that is 27. Then I want the gathers to start at 35 inches. I want the gathers to be above my knee length. So the gathers of this skirt will start at 34 inches. So after that, I will measure my waist divided by 4 plus 1 inch seam allowance. Then at my hip, you add like extra 2 inches or 3 inches to your hip measurement. Then from there, you mark a straight line down. You make it to have a small A-line shape. I don't know if you understand. You will not have to make the knee part to be fitted. It has to be A-line. So I will cut out the front part, and after cutting out this, I will use it for the back. And for the back, I will add a zipper allowance too. I will add a zipper allowance to the net part of this skirt. So after cutting that out, you will have to cut out the net that you will use for your gathers. So this skirt has 2 steps. It has 2 tiers. It has the first tier and the second tier of gathers. I don't know if you understand. So after that, we will have to like subtract this fitted part that we cut now. We will have to subtract it from the full length of the skirt so that we can get the length of the gather. So I have folded my net I folded my net the whole 6 yards. Then you will subtract 34 inches. Remember that the fitted part of this skirt stopped at 34 inches. You will subtract that 34. Then you will mark your full, and the full length of the skirt is 62. You will divide the remaining part of the skirt by 2, and I got 48. The full length of this gown is 62. I subtracted 34 for the fitted part of the skirt, and then you will divide the remaining part into 2, and you get the length of each tier. And you also add 2 inches allowance to each of them. You will still see the reason why I added 2 inches extra allowance to each step of this skirt, to each tier of this skirt. So after cutting out, if the first tier will be like just one cutting, but the second one will be double or 3 times of what you have at the first step. The first tier, let's say the first tier, the full length will be, let's say, 120 inches. That means that the second step, the full length of the gathers will be 240 inches. The second step will be wider than the first step. So I am done shaping my skirt, and I'm done shaping the skirt of the net as well. So right now I will go ahead and add my first tier. I'll go ahead and gather my first tier on this fitted part of the net. So the gathers will be on top. The gathers will be on top of this skirt. So I'll go ahead and add the gathers, then I will come back and show you guys. You can see I have just one full length of my net here, but for the second tier I have two. The second tier will have to be 2 times or 3 times longer or wider than the first step. So I am done joining my first step, and this is what I have. You can see that I did my gathers on top of the net. The gathers will be outside. So right now I will add my second tier, and I joined this net so that it will be way longer than what I have at the first tier. So right now I'll go ahead and gather this one on top of the first one. You can see how the gathers look. I'll go ahead and gather this second one on top of this one. Like I said, if you have enough net, you should make it 3 times longer than the first one, so that when you gather, it will be very full and it will have this A-line shape. So at the end of the day, this is what I have. When I bought this net, I didn't know that it will have the same color with my table, but I hope you understand what I'm doing right here. So after doing this, you add the ankara part of the skirt to it. I'll have to add the ankara part of this skirt. So I will open up the zipper allowance of the net part. I'm trying to like spread it. So I have opened up the zipper allowance. I'll also open the zipper allowance of the ankara part. I'll open the zipper allowance. Then I'll place it inside the net. Then I'll go ahead and run a stitch along the waistline and along the zipper allowance line. I'll go ahead and use a stitch to hold the net down to the ankara. I'll repeat the same thing to the other side. Then after sewing that, I'll also join the 2 of them at the waist. So after doing this, you will close your zipper allowance before adding your zipper and your band. So right now I am done, and this is what I have. So I'll go ahead and close my zipper allowance. So if you are joining it to the upper part, if you are sewing a gown, you will have to join to the upper part first of all before closing your zipper allowance. So right now I'll go ahead and close my zipper allowance. My zipper will stop at the hip line. So from the hip line downwards, I will join. Like I'll go ahead and close this gown from the hip line down to the full length. You can use 2 inches seam allowance, it depends on how many inches you used as your zipper allowance. So from the hip line, I will go ahead and sew straight down to the full length, and after that I will add my zipper. So at the end of the day, this is what we have. I hope our gown or our skirt is very fine, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up, and do not forget to subscribe so that you can get more videos from me. Our September registration is ongoing. I will drop the link in the comment section so that you can register if you are interested in any of our courses. So thank you guys so much, and see you in my next video. Bye.